This is the third time I'm trying to record this because I don't want to get into technical explanations to try to prove what I'm thinking. So I'm just going to explain. When I was at Pure Life Ministries, the thought process there was if somebody didn't graduate, the other students would all unanimously, for the most part, agree that, oh, we shouldn't talk to those students. And I knew there was something wrong with that. It didn't sit right with me. Because I was like, well, so we're just gonna assume that they didn't graduate because they're the ones who are wrong, not the counselors, not like the ministry. Well, sure enough, remember guys, I was at work one time, and there was a guy rambling off about what he believed, and then one of my friends, or I should just say one of the fellow students, kind of asked me, "You didn't believe what he was saying, did you?" And when I said, "What did he say that was wrong?" I didn't say I believed what he was saying. I just asked, "What did he say that was wrong?" And he looks at me like I'm crazy. And then after that, my counselor would force me. He would tell me, "You can't talk with anyone at work." And then he'd make me listen to all these talks about some, like, listening to crazy doctrines or something. And I just thought, like, why doesn't someone ask me, like, hey, do you believe what he was saying? Or, you know, let's talk about that or whatever. But me asking a question, suddenly that proves that, oh, I believe whatever that guy was saying. Doesn't matter what it was, just because I asked what was wrong with it. Because I want to know, like, what is a proposition? Like, if somebody gives me false information, I want to talk about it. I want somebody to say, okay, what's something that they said, so then we can prove it wrong. But nobody was willing to open up and talk about that. So now we're in a situation where I'm off on my own in this world learning things. And because I'm willing to ask questions and stick to the truth no matter what and not make these assumptions about other people, I'm able to figure out things and learn. Whereas this ministry I was at has people who aren't capable of doing that. And the same kind of thing happened when I was at this company called Runtime Verification. So when I was there, they would compile code into a logic system. But the reason why I wanted to work at a company that had formal verification, and I didn't even know this company existed. I was literally sleeping out of a car. I had come back to my university, and I was like, no, this is something I want to work to. This was after I went to this ministry. And I met this guy at Starbucks who introduced me to this company. And the professor is the top professor at University of Illinois when it comes to, like, formal verification, and he used to work at NASA. Now, I had already studied, like, Haskell, and I had already figured out before this, before I even knew about Haskell, even before I actually went back to my university, before I was even in the or got out of the military, which was after I had proven another computer science professor wrong, and he told the whole class that I was right. But I had told I had figured out that you don't need programming languages at all. You don't even need them. You can just edit parse trees directly. And I had figured this out, and when I was at this company, I started bringing things up and talking about, hey, I wonder if we can do things using calculus of inductive constructions and things like this. And they thought I was just like they must have just thought I was making things up. So, and they didn't appreciate the code that I'd written, which worked really well when it came to, like, you would run a script, It would check to see if anything changed, and then it would decide to download and run these tests automatically. And because it said some error message, they would ask me like, "What is this?" And they acted like I wasted my time all the time. And I'm thinking like, what do they think I'm doing? Like, are they checking my URLs and seeing that I'm on like YouTube all day because I'm just listening to music like as I'm working, you know? But like if they don't ask me like, by the way, what are you doing today? Are you just watching videos or are you coding? Like if they actually like looked at the code and been like, wow, you did a lot of updates and improvements all throughout the entire time that you were working, like, and you made things parallelized, and you like every time you logged that you were working, you actually were accomplishing things and improving the system. But they don't ask, you know, they don't like, they just treat you, people just treat you like you're like, they just decide in their own brain that they think you're fake, so, or something. Because some guy wanted me to make something and it wasn't logically sound. Like it was just like, it's like finding the number that's smaller than the smallest number. Like it's like, it didn't make sense. Like he was saying like make an interface for something where like you wouldn't make an interface to make the process more optimal. So I didn't know what he was, so I was just asked him like, why do you need an interface? You know, because obviously if my purpose is to do something useful and make something valuable, then I have to make the thing that you're asking me to make. So therefore I have to know what the thing is and like what you're using it for. So if I don't know why you're needing the thing when like you already have a direct, like when you write a script and it compiles something and then you say make an interface, you're adding an extra task in between. So me asking that question, there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to know like why you need it. Like if you tell someone to do something and they know what the job is to do, then yeah, you could say like, oh, don't ask why, just do it. But if you don't know what the thing is, if why is part of the thing, then then there's nothing wrong with asking why, because it's like literally easier to do it with not an interface at all. Kind of like Elon Musk says, the best part is no part. So if Elon Musk told me make the best brakes and I had like this system that just used electromagnetics to just store all the energy all the time, it was 100% reliable and all this, and they're like, and disc brakes would actually make it less reliable, then I'd be like, okay, here's the car can stop and there's literally no brake. Because we basically engineered brakes out, you know. Or like if you make a shotcrete house, you don't need like a spacing between studs, because you don't have studs, basically. So if you engineer them out, then it's basically like you don't need them. So I'm just like, I'm confused what you want, but here's the problem. That's not the problem. The problem isn't the technology or the leadership issues. The problem is nobody would actually come to me and ask me, why are you doing this, or what's going on here, or explain to me what's going on socially, rather than just asking me to do something. Like, ask me to explain technologically or socially what's actually going on, as though I might actually know something at all, instead of just assuming that I know absolutely nothing and that you know everything that's going on, because maybe I know something that you don't about at least something that's going on here, whether it's technically or socially. My boss should be willing to think that it's possible that I might actually know something, and be willing to communicate with me, you know? So that job is just strange, because I remember I was chatting with someone, and he just said, like, he was one of the newer guys who used to be a grad student, but I said, like, no, that's incorrect. This is how you do something. And he was just like, I don't think we should have that tone. I'm like, what? I want to go up to like math teachers as they're teaching math and be like, I don't like that tone of your derivative that you just explained, talking about change. Like how math doesn't have a tone, or propositional reasoning when you're just talking with someone about facts. There is no tone when there's straight facts. And when somebody comes in and they try to insert and say like that you have a tone, when literally you can read through and it's literally just like technical specification talk, um, that's a load of garbage. That's like somebody just manipulating. Um, and it was pretty clear that there was like this underlying, like, I could tell that this guy just didn't want me around. He was like jealous that I was working there or something. But I didn't really say that, but I'm just doing my job and I'm just doing it as I'm supposed to do it. So having a tone, I can't, and then I go to explain this to people who are my family members who are like emotional, and they, oh yeah, you should be forgiving. Oh yeah, you should have a tone. It's like, if I'm forgiving, then I'm willing to go back, even when it doesn't make sense to go back and try again with this company, And that's what I did. After 3 months, instead of hiring me full time and letting me move on to another position, which I would be good at because I've already done the research, they say, well, you can be an intern again. And it's like there's no point in me going back, And then, I had a relationship with this Ukrainian girl years later, and I told her about this. And I told her how I was trying to tell her how I listened to my mom and I forgave them and came back by like saying, okay, even though this didn't happen the first 3 months, I'm going back for another 3 months. Just me bringing that up and then her saying, oh, you should forgive, and then saying that I didn't forgive him and all this stuff. And it's like, what are you talking about? I'm bringing it up to explain to you how I didn't have to forgive anyone to fix this problem. The problem exists regardless of how I feel. Like they don't get what's going on. They don't understand what's going on. And that doesn't have anything to do with how I feel about anything. It's just a fact. It's just true. If they have their heads on backwards, that's not something that I can just feel my way out of. Like they just choose to be obstinate and to think that they know everything because they're the quote unquote best. So my point is like, you should always be willing to communicate with everyone. It doesn't matter their background. It doesn't matter their grades for anything. It doesn't matter any of that stuff, because anyone could bring a proposition, and the proposition is true. And the proposition is what stands on itself, not the experience, not the background, not the credentials. None of that matters. Some homeless guy who's losing his mind could bring me a better proposition than the top professional professor at a top university. And I can check that with math basically and be like, yeah, this homeless guy brought up a better, more accurate, he could bring me a more accurate formula for calculating like digits of pi, and that stands on its own. So why people judge each other based on how they feel and based on this background and all these other things, it just doesn't make sense to me. I want to make a company because I want to get these things done, and this company didn't get these things done. I want to make a ministry to get things done because the ministry I was at just judged me and doesn't know how to get the things done that I just want to get done. Just simple things. Just being able to let people code or do math using a parse tree editor, or in this ministry, just help people who are in these industries that are hurting people, and help them realize hey, this is how you Stop doing that. This is how you stop hurting other people, by not working and advancing these industries that are hurting people. Like, this is very simple. And yet, I have someone who would sit there, in the ministry I was at, the counselor would sit there and he would act like I was supposed to tell him some secret. He would read my body language, and he thinks that I'm like lying to him or hiding something from him. And ultimately, he seals his fate, because I know that God is just, and I know that he judged me. He decided to judge me based on my nonverbal communication, because he decided to not let me graduate. And he whispered in my ear like a demon, "Oh, unless a miracle happens." And then he told that to my friend, who apparently was hiding something from him, until he decided to bring something up. It's just like, so I was open with you the whole time and you reject me, but this guy was hiding something from you the whole time and you only accept him because you understand him. What a joke. Like, that's not, God's going to give me justice for that. God's going to give me justice for how University of Illinois treated me. God's going to give me justice for how runtime verification treated me. He's going to give me justice, and all these people are going to be, they're going to be begging and crying, and they don't understand. Like, when you put your faith in God, he gives you justice, and you cannot get out of it. You can't act like you can just treat people however you want and then get away with it and be jealous of them. And just because you're jealous and because you feel like you want everything to go your way feelings-wise, and you don't just want to work with facts and truth, justice turns into this messed up thing. Justice is a pure, good, awesome thing. Anybody with a right mind loves justice. They love justice. They don't think that justice and mercy are opposites. Like, that's the biggest lie. Those are not opposites. They're like they go hand in hand. Like, read the verse, Micah 6:8. Walk humbly, live justly, and act with mercy. These are the things that God requires of you. Like, this is what you're supposed to do. Like, if somebody's hurting, like, this is how the Jewish people use this term, by the way. Justice, if somebody's hurting financially, you don't just say, "Oh, well, they're a mooch. We're going to give them money because we're supposed to just help them be a mooch." No, you're giving them whatever resources they need in order to do what is righteous, what is right. And that's not necessarily always something that everyone's going to understand. Like, that's part of the reason why there's financial hardship in the first place, is because not everyone understands what everyone else is always doing all the time. Like, that's just not true. You do justice by doing what's right. And you do what's right by giving people the benefit of the doubt. And when they're wrong, you show them and prove them why they're wrong. But at least you are willing to listen to them and help them. And if they're right, then you find out because you were willing to listen to them. So that's a good thing. Like, that should be a good thing. If you listen to someone and you find out that they're right. Like, I chose to listen to this guy, Craig Wright. Well, everyone else was calling a fraud, like Vitalik, and this is funny because it relates to the company I was at. Because at Runtime Verification, that guy that bought us all dinner, that was the head guy in Cardano. That was the guy leading Input-Output HK, Charles Hoskinson. And he would sit down, apparently, at these conferences and call Craig Wright fake Toshi. It's like, there's no proof that he's fake. You can't say, "Oh, if he doesn't sign," like Vitalik said, "if he doesn't sign with this key, then due to signaling theory, he must not be the guy." It's just like, okay, well, that means that I can prove that I'm not like a criminal by not presenting the evidence, that I'm a criminal. Like, I could prove anything to anyone, like, using that logic. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Like, you don't want, you really think it's easy to like deal with people like knowing that you mined 1 million of this Bitcoin? Like, okay. After your house is raided, like, come on. This is so stupid. But, people close their minds, and I have a brother-in-law who just closed his mind and was like, well, he didn't present the key, so therefore it's not him. It's just like, well, let's just assume you're right, and we'll just use the math of how Bitcoin works, okay? We'll just use the math of how Bitcoin works. We'll go with that. We won't even assume anybody's anybody. We'll just go with the math. And what happens with the math? Well, Craig Wright is pretty much right about everything. Like, Bitcoin is Turing complete if you have opcodes. If you have nodes, which are separate from peers, the nodes can scale and you can handle all this data. Like, I'm sorry, but Craig Wright is somebody you should be listening to, not censoring. And like, I learned about him and I realized about him. Why? Because I was willing to listen to him, just like I'm willing to listen to other people who have been involved in technology. And if you want to call it religion, I've learned things there because I've been willing to listen to people. And it's funny because my mom would always tell me when I was younger, like, you don't listen. It's like, yeah, I have a problem like paying attention because my brain doesn't work well with like letting information just flow. So when I would sit in a class and my teacher would give us like math homework, I wouldn't put the sentences together and always know like, oh, this is obviously they're talking about homework and this is what the homework. Somehow, some way, I couldn't like pick up all that information because my brain is not processing the information the same way most people's brains process it. So a lot of times I just don't have the, I don't pick up on all that stuff because I don't have the same memory. I don't use my brain the same way. But I do use my brain, and I do use it in a useful way. And when people don't listen to me, when I actually clearly say, like, here's it really slow, you have all the time in the world, I wrote it in an email, so you literally can spend 1,000 years, if you can live that long, to read this email and make sure that you're understanding every letter of it perfectly. I have all the time, you have all the time in the world from me to read this one email to explain to you. And sure, I sent an email to Grigory Rosu, the guy who's running runtime verification. I send an email or a text message to my friends explaining these things. And they have all the time in the world to read these emails and to check if I am correct or incorrect. They have all the time. I don't have to sit there and draw, math on a blackboard and then erase it so they have no time to remember. No, I send it in an email, I send it in a text, and they have all the time. And I'll remind them, and I'll point to them, and I'll be like, hey, I sent you this email. I sent you this text. This has all the information you need. Now, you need to either prove me wrong or prove that I'm right because the information in there is sufficient for that. And people just don't do that. It doesn't make sense to me. There's no reason, I explain to people why we need Condorcet voting. Why do you think nobody's able to vote for something like Georgism, even though that used to be the most popular book? This is going to keep happening. We're going to keep downwarding, spiraling until people realize what's actually happening in this world. What's actually happening is people are basically breeding themselves into this mindset of where everything is based off social feelings and preference, and we're losing the capability of being able to understand what a fact, what something like a true proposition actually is. We're losing that. That's like this is actually what I think is actually happening. man, there's so many times where I would rant and be so angry and want to talk, but I'm driving a truck and I have no way of like recording it in a way that would, there'd probably be too much background noise or something. I mean, I've recorded myself a couple times, but I don't want to make like a podcast where I'm just ranting for every episode for 1,000 episodes. I guess I could make one. And then, because what I want to do is I want to actually build something useful. And I want to find friends and work with people who are able to have the mindset that I have. Because when I worked at this company, I just assumed, because I was open-minded, and I just assumed that these people, because they have PhDs and they're working on all this math, that they would understand that, when I put an idea forward, oh, Tim's making something twice as efficient. He's making something 10 times as efficient. He's making something 1,000 times as efficient. Let's check it. No, they don't listen at all. Like, literally don't. It's like, where am I? What universe? Is this vivarium? Like, what universe am I in where it's like these people are like, it's like psychopathic, and then when I'm like the autistic guy and the guy who doesn't have like the nice tone, somehow I'm the enemy. Somehow I'm the weird guy who's like a jerk, who's like correcting everybody. It's like, no, dude, I am in this universe where I know what I'm thinking makes sense. And it's like the movie Vivarium, where like it's hell. They're just being tortured by these aliens who don't even understand human feelings and that are just using them. It's creepy. But they think that it's normal because they think, oh, this is social normal people these days. This is how people think these days. It's like, yeah, people are not, there is something really just messed up about it. And I'm not gonna go down that path and play these games and deal with people who, like, if they make a mistake, that's fine. They just have to be able to correct the mistake and realize, like, oh, I messed up. Oh, I made a mistake. I treated Tim the wrong way. I didn't understand him. I didn't listen to him. Oh, he was right about XYZ. So let's get back to making that technology, or let's get back to, solving things this way, or looking at this doctrine. But they don't do that. They just like move on, like, oh, that's the past, and they just move on. But then they move on like with their false narrative and their false way of doing things, like doing everything like the wrong way, like missing the whole point. And I'm like, this is insane. This is absolutely crazy. So man, that's how I feel this morning. And it's a Sabbath, and Sabbaths are days where I'm supposed to rest and be restored and not just work. And I feel like working through something and understanding what is going on with my life is like, it's got to be like part of that. But I want to know what you guys think, because this kind of stuff just drives me nuts. And when I was in the Army, I remember the guy, he had me look for the coordinates following the X and then the Y, and then he chose the wrong coordinates because he actually messed up the X and the Y. And I actually had to point that out to him by showing him that he's following like the reason why he was thinking that he was doing it correctly is because he was choosing the points the wrong way and then confirming his falsehood with that false way of doing it. And I showed him, like, and that was in the Army. That was dumb, but that was in the Army. But the same thing applies. Like, people in the Army thought I was dumb when I try to explain how, like, a heavier object, if you include air friction, will actually fall faster than a smaller, lighter object of the same density and shape, because air friction changes the whole rule about things falling at the same speed. And they were thinking like, well, you should know that everything falls at the same speed, and so you're dumb. It's like, I know that that's true when there's no air friction, you know? And it's like the same thing with the university. It's like they think that they think that they're so smart, but it's like, I chose to go to University of Illinois. I did not even want to go to another university. I didn't even apply to go to MIT. I didn't even apply to go to Stanford. I didn't even apply to go to all these other Princeton or anything. I did not apply to go to all of these schools. I just applied to go to one school. You know? It's like, y'all think that I'm like somehow magically just trying to get by. It's just like, well, yeah, in some ways I am, but it's not a joke. Like, it's not, I'm not in the wrong school or whatever. I'm not in over my head. I'm going to engineer things just like other people have. I am capable and I have ideas, and there are legitimate, provable, and workable ideas that are not crazy and not too big for somebody to accomplish. And they're good. And like, that's a good thing, and you should realize that and not just assume that I'm like, they're not. That's just the facts. And I don't usually fight for things and argue for things, but like, after just dealing with this for so long, it's just like, what else am I supposed to say? What else am I supposed to do? You guys tell me, what am I supposed to do? So, anyone online, if you're able to just work with math and you like things that are true, the technology that I want to make, we could redo operating systems from the ground up if we really wanted to. But what I want to make is like a code tree editing tool that just makes it simpler to do the simplest things. And I already have the proof of concept. Look up Inspiration Basic. You can see, like, I make a sorting algorithm that sorts using insertion sort, and then another one using selection sort, and it's all using just menus. There's no code, like, typing. There's no typing of text involved in the coding. So, if you guys want to help me with that, I'm sure if I ran like the right Kickstarter with the right information, it could make a lot. We could make a script editor for Bitcoin. Like I said, Bitcoin, we would use BSV, forget all the other junk. You can manage data. You'd probably replace Amazon, AWS like services, like things like that. Blockchain is powerful because you can store data and it's there and it's immutable, and that's very useful for a lot of immutable types of data. So there's nothing wrong with that. And people try to make something wrong with something that there's nothing wrong with, because that's just how they are. They're like evil like that. I don't know why, but I don't want to waste my time with all that, with just arguing about stuff. I want to just make stuff and move on. I want to make an operating system that works better, so we can have control over our own devices, our own phones and computers, and be able to change whatever we want, however the user interface works. There's no reason why we can't do something like that. You just have to have the proper underlying type theory structure. And I try to explain this to Apple whenever I complain to them about their products, and it just gets me angry that they don't understand this. It's like, all it is math. That's all it is. And people don't understand this. It's like, it just is a proper understanding of structuring everything with the correct mathematical structure at its base layer, and that fixes all these problems that people have with so many things. Voting, people vote for things and tell us your favorite choice out of these 5 choices, and then we'll go with whatever one. It's that's not a Condorcet vote. A Condorcet vote means you pairwise ask. you give people these different pairs, and then you propagate up which one is the one that's wanted most, which might not be one that even gets anybody's first vote. Again, that's just a mathematical explanation. That's just a mathematical, correctly structured model for the problem that needs to be solved. Like, that's all it is. So many problems, so many practical problems that people are having that result in like homelessness, death, and all these problems can be solved. A lot of them is just math. And people always like, no, it's nothing to do with math. It's just kindness. It's like, no, like, it's like very simply math a lot of these times. Like, you want to drive me crazy? You tell me that SpaceX is using gimbal lock instead of quaternions for for the rotation of their rockets. That's gonna make me mad. That's gonna drive me crazy, because you don't have that much money and you don't kick that many people out of your company, and then you make a mistake like that. You just don't do it. To me, it's like morally wrong. You can sleep on the ground in your warehouse all day, but that just makes it even more wrong, because then you think that you're cool when you're doing the wrong thing. It's okay to think that you're cool. You just have to actually be cool and not do the wrong thing. Like, so guys, look, you might be subscribed to me because you like calculator programming videos and that's all you want to see. Okay, that's fine. That's all I was doing in 2013, kind of, on my YouTube channel. Not all I was doing. I was making Minecraft tribute video and other things. But, like, I already made a design for an app that lets you code as though it's a calculator on your app. And I was designing that before I started my calculator programming series. So, guys, come on. Like, you might like me for that, but I want, I think we need, I need to find some good people who we can get on Slack or Discord or somewhere. Doesn't matter where, as long as it works. And just develop stuff. And let's make it transparent stuff. GitHub is requiring 2FA. I don't like that because I don't like the chance of being locked out of an account, which could theoretically happen. But I want to make it so that the Git code is available in perpetuity, so no account is necessary in order to even access the thing. And I can't guarantee that won't happen with GitHub, but I can guarantee it will happen with, BSV, if you publish it as a transaction, a Git project onto the blockchain directly, so if we use some app that can eventually do that, that would be nice. But I want to make sure that it's accessible and people know how to use it and access it. So if we can actually have an app that we're using so that people can use the app in perpetuity, that would be nice. We need this. We got all these movies coming out talking about how AI is going to change all the history and deceive everyone and all this stuff. And it's just but that's why we have blockchains. And that, the NSA invented this thing called a secure hash algorithm, and it's very, 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 very powerful for this type of exact, precise type of application. We can use a secure hash to basically make it so that nobody, including AI, doesn't matter, permissionless, nobody can change this information without, it's secured. And so that's why you want to build on it and use it as your code base, use it as your database, literally. So, guys, I want to do things right. And sometimes that involves thinking and talking, not just doing. And some people are obsessed with just doing. But there's a reason why Tesla had told Edison, or talked about Edison, saying, if he just put a little bit of thought into what he was doing, he could save 90% of his work. So, and the sad thing is he might have been, that might be the minimum rather than the maximum but there is a good balance. But guys, I'm not just going and working for another company because I don't want to just make the same mistakes that I've already made. I don't want to just randomly work with people again and make the same mistakes. I want to do something kind of like that seeds something new, like when the Genesis block, or the when Git was launched, those were really good peer-to-peer systems that seeded a new way of people communicating. And I almost feel like I either need to seed something or use one of those in a way that it's not really being used enough, and get something going on one of those systems so that these ideas that I have, the reason why I can't work with people easily is I don't have a good way of filtering out. It's like a filtering problem. It's like I don't have a good way of filtering and figuring out who to work with. Because even if I thought it was all based on intelligence, it's like I still need a cash flow. I still need a foundation to build everything on top of. I can't just weed everyone out based on intelligence and be like, hey, I have nothing to pay anybody with, So the reason why I'm talking about peer-to-peer is because it's like the solution to that problem is basically like I'm complaining about them judging me, right? And not just taking the proposition. Well, in a more, and I don't want to use the term decentralized when there's so much confusion about it, but you got to listen to Craig Wright to fix that. But I want to say peer-to-peer, to be able to broadcast a proposition or say like I have this problem that needs solved, and being able to directly just pay anyone who solves that particular problem, that solves a lot of the filtering technique because it doesn't depend, there's no requirement for intelligence or even just going to put it out there for somebody to even be a human, because it shouldn't matter when in a permissionless system. That's the thing that people don't get. That's the thing that Elon Musk actually has. He's hacking it, by the way, with Twitter, because by forcing you to be a human to use Twitter instead of being a bot, what he's doing is he's hacking the system, and instead of using a permissionless solution like proof of work, what he's doing is he's using like proof through the government, like proof of identity. And I think that's more of, I call it a hack because it's a less sophisticated way, but it kind of works for the system that he has right now in the meantime. So it's kind of like, that's why I call it a hack. So anyway, let me know if you guys think I'm just crazy, or if you think I should like post, because I have some projects that I don't put on YouTube. Like I have a whole Lambda calculus suite, and I used to think that, hey, if somebody gets neural nets working, we could work with this. And that was before ChatGPT, and now I'm like, hey, I got all this data that you could use to train chatbots, maybe I could make millions of dollars doing that. I don't know. But I don't put everything on YouTube. That's why some people are like commenting like on my calculator programming videos, like, why don't you code in C? And I'm like, I've been trying to, I've been thinking that C was a joke since 2013, when I was using functional languages in some of my classes. But so let me know, guys, what you think, because I'm just trying to deal with life. And if you just look at my life for what it is and what I'm thinking and what I'm going through, it's like, I mean,
I can't just go talk to like some therapist if they don't understand. Like somebody has to understand all the pieces of the puzzle, and pretty much no one does except me. So I could try to talk with someone about some of this, but if they don't understand the technology part, they might not realize how obvious certain things are, or they might not understand the, you know, they might be good with like the math and the technology, but then they haven't been out there to actually do anything, and they're not really the type of person who talks to people in the first place. You know, they're just like this hermit, you know. So it's like, it's hard to communicate the whole situation to people. But if I have subscribers, you know, they're following me. You guys think I should do the Lewis Rossman thing where you put the hash on the description of the channel, and then that way you can follow me. If I am removed, you can still follow me, quote unquote, directly. They removed his video for that. All he was doing is explaining a tool that he made. So anyway, I'll see you guys later. Sorry for the rant. If you don't like rants, I don't know what the future holds, but right now I just kind of do what I need to do to get by, and that's pretty much life right now. So I wish people respected other people until they were proven to not be, you know, or some people think that you need to earn respect, but what's funny is they also seem to be the type of people that seem like they respect you, and then they kind of like don't respect you, but they don't actually have a valid reason not to. But they also don't like explain why, so you can't actually prove them wrong. They just kind of assume that they're right. So there's that. Yeah. Anyway, guys, communication is a good thing, and I don't care how many people think that I don't do it or whatever. It's like I'm usually the only one willing to communicate in situations, which kind of messed up, to be honest, to be fair. I have to be fair at some point, because at some point I just realized like this is just dumb, and I just have to say this is wrong, this is messed up, and no, that I do communicate, and I am willing to communicate, and I'm not going to take from someone saying that I'm not. That's just a load of garbage. So see you guys next time, and I wish you all the best.